Hi class, welcome to Motor Learning and Performance, PEP 288 with me, Elizabeth Harding. This is a pre-lab tutorial, so hopefully the skills that you'll learn in these, actually part 1 and part 2 of this pre-lab tutorial will help you in labs to come. So what we're going to do, or the goal of this really, is to show you how to download a copy of your own sheet to work with, and then how to organize that data so that you can very effectively and efficiently perform your analyses. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I did is I opened up Google Sheets. This is our class data sheet. You can see we have our participant demographics, the data dictionary from Lab 1, our error scores, and then even our static balance that no one seems to be entering. All right, but that's our current working data sheet. So we don't want to mess around with this too much. We want to be able to change things, delete rows if we want to. So we need to make a copy because we definitely don't want to do that with our class sheet. So I'm going to go here to File, under Google Sheets, File, Download As, and we want to download this as a Microsoft Excel.xlsx file. Okay, so there's my downloaded file. I'm going to go ahead and open that. Okay, and here is my copy. So this will get to be my working copy of our class data sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this window, right? Even though the formatting is a little bit different, just to be sure that I don't start moving back and forth and changing things in the class data sheet. So class data sheet's closed. This is my copy to do with what I want. And the first thing I want to do, for some reason, I don't know if this is just a glitch with my computer or if everyone is having this issue, but there's no grid lines, right? It came over without grid lines. And so I'm going to use the Format Painter tool that I showed you in class the other week. And I'm just going to highlight, I want the grid lines back, so these look good. I'm just going to highlight a few of those, use the paintbrush, and then I'm going to paint that format that I want so I can better view my data. Right? And there you go. Okay, so the grid lines are back. All right, so we have our participant demographics, data dictionary. I don't really need. I'm going to go ahead and right click on this tab and delete it. Fine. All right. Definitely want to keep our Lab 1 error scores. Do not need this sheet here. That Lab 2 static balance. All right, so here we go. We're going to be working with participant demographics and error scores. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find out who actually has entered some of their characteristics. So their sex, their height, their weight. And the reason is because we can't necessarily analyze the error scores if we don't have the participant information. Right? So we really need to know who we were working with, who we're measuring. And so the participant demographics is really going to tell us how many subjects we get. And we're going to hopefully see that the subjects that entered their characteristics also have data associated with them. But how we're going to first sort this is we're actually going to sort this by column B here, this sex, male and female, because you can see that this individual doesn't have their demographic information in yet, but this individual does. So male. We're going to go ahead and sort by this. We don't want to sort by ID. So I'm going to highlight this sheet. So I can just click here and the whole sheet's highlighted. Alternatively, I can go ahead and highlight here and all the way down. Okay, and select my entire range of data. And then I'm going to go up to data here and sort. And I want to sort by sex, one male, female. And I want to sort by largest to smallest because I want all my ones to be first, then my zeros, and then everyone else, the blanks at the bottom. So hit OK. All right, and see that the UNMID numbers changed, all because all of the data went with its appropriate row. Right, so everything, all data is intact. Right, and you can see I have a nice sample of participants that actually have some data. I have some in here that don't necessarily have their demographic data, but we'll handle that later. And then these subjects we really can't use in our study because even if they did have error scores information, because we just don't have their characteristics. Right, so very important for those of you who haven't done so, make sure you put in your participant characteristics. Okay. All right, so there you go, step one. That looks a little better. And then let's take a look at this. Yeah, that's a little chaotic. All right, so how can we clean this up? Well, I think the best way to do this is just to create a new sheet that's solely for working with, that's solely for doing your analyses, where all your data is clean and pretty. You make your tables, you make your graphs in it. So let's go ahead and create a new worksheet. So I'm going to go to this little tab here, this plus sign. I'm going to rename it right away so I don't forget. I'm just going to quickly double click and highlight it. Alternatively, you can right click and hit rename. I'm going to call this working. Okay, my working sheet. All right, and so I'm going to want my ID number here. I'm going to want the participant characteristics that I care about, as well as the absolute constant variable error for the 3 tossing conditions, because really that's what I'm interested in. All the other stuff, all the ways that we got to those values, we don't really need those anymore. So let's go ahead and add our UNMID number here. So there's at least 2 different ways that would be okay to do this. The first, you could right click and copy, go back to your working sheet, highlight that column A and paste. But what ends up happening here is that you don't have a reference for where this information came from. So even if it's just an ID, you just don't have a reference. So better practice in this case is to reference the cell. And I'm actually going to give myself a few different rows up top. So I'm going to start in cell A3. So I'm going to start in that 3rd row, and I'm going to go equals, go back to my participant demographics, and select the UNMID header and enter. Right. And so I think we had about 63 participants in our class. So let's head down to, can you overshoot a little bit? Yeah. Okay. So row 66. I'm going to delete these guys. All right, and there's our student IDs, and you can see that it's referencing that participant demographics sheet, right? And so we know that we want the sex, height, weight, and age. And I also think for the purposes of this experiment, it's kind of nice to know handedness, right? At least for an underhand toss. An athlete, an overhead thrower, this might not actually influence them, but certainly when we get to more overhead throwing type skills, we might want to add this information in. And then in history of injury, gaming. So gaming is highly linked to hand-eye coordination. So I think as we start to do some of those more fine motor skill type labs, the gaming would be a very interesting variable to add and to analyze. All right. So, but we know that we pretty much want to keep it in order, maybe up to from columns A to F. Right. So we can go back to our working sheet and just drag this over from A to F. And there we go. We have the appropriate headers. Right, so this says sex, height, weight, age, and hand dominance. They're right or left-handed. Okay, and that was determined as the hand that you would throw a ball with. All right, so because Excel knows that we're working in participant demographics, here is specifically cell B1. We can drag this data all the way down to our last participant, and we didn't have demographics, it's okay. All right, so it should know, right? So yeah, because it's actually accessing cell B8. We added 2 cells, so that makes sense, right? So it looks like it's pulling it from the right place. Okay, so we can do this a little faster. We could definitely drag, or we could go to this little box right here at this lower right-hand corner and wait for our plus sign to get dark, and then very quickly double left click, and there you go. And it'll take it all the way down to the last row that you had data. Okay. So again, those zeros are just because those individuals haven't put their demographic information in yet. There we go. And then age, and then hand dominance. So wait for it to go black, and very quickly click left twice. All right, so there we go. So there's our participant demographics. The next thing that we're going to do, the next thing that we need to do is we need to pull in our data. Okay, we need to pull in our data over here by participant ID. And that is in the next video. So hopefully you've been able to get to this point here, right? So I've given myself a little space, and I'll show you why in the next video. You should have some headers, look really good, but in all your demographics is in your working sheet. All right, so go ahead and stay tuned, or go ahead and tune into the part 2 of your lab or pre-lab videos. And please email me if you have any questions.